Brandon Miller is playing well right now. He's a top 3 rookie.
Oh,
He's the third best rookie. It's Chet, Wemby, and Brandon Miller. Brandon Miller's last 10 games, he's averaging 22.7. It is before the Lakers game, so those numbers are definitely going
most
up.
Definitely.
61% true shooting percentage, and for the season, he's averaging 16, 4, and 2 on 55% true shooting, and he's shooting 45% from mid-range. I think Brandon Miller, and this is what I saw in college, I think he's a gifted scorer, and I think he can be one of the league's best scorers, and we have to start talking about him as a wing that is up there with other wings that we label as up-and-coming stars. The one I compare him to is probably Jalen Williams. I think their game style and play style is different, but Brandon Miller, just as a rookie, I think is putting himself in that category where he has the upside of Jalen Williams. He has the upside to be just as good, if not better, and I think there was a lot of disrespect on his name in the draft process. This is not a slight to Scoot, because I like Scoot as a prospect, and I was high on him in the draft. But this notion that he should have been the second overall pick, it was him and Wemby, and Brandon Miller was not in the discussion, I never agreed with it, because I think Brandon Miller had a specific skill set at his size that fit more basketball teams. And the Scoot PR machine, I thought, was one of the craziest that I've ever seen in the draft cycle. I understand he was a great prospect, but I seen people compare him to Luka. There was this tweet that I read in the offseason that said that the Brandon Miller versus Scoot stuff reminds me of Luka Doncic. You had John here saying that the Celtics should trade Jaylen Brown for the right to draft Scoot Henderson, and thinking that would make the Celtics better. I just feel like Scoot got overrated so quickly, and not a fault of his own, but just the hype behind him as a prospect, that we overshadowed how great of a prospect Brandon Miller was. It's not often that you're finding a 6'7" to 6'9" wing who can shoot like him, and I think that he got severely underrated, and now he's just showing a glimpse of what he can do long-term in the NBA.
Most definitely. I feel like what has really made me take a liking to his game is that he doesn't need the basketball in his hands at all time to get his. He's great moving without the basketball too, knowing how to read defenses at such a young age so quickly in this league, where he sees just how they're positioned. He knows when to make his cuts, know when to call for alley-oops. I think the one part of his game that I'm pretty sure it's pretty well known he needs to work on is his finishing near the rim. But outside of that, has a very smooth jumper, knows how to get to his spots in the mid-range, has a nice turnaround, finish in traffic. It's really the jump shooting that really stands out to you at this point in time. Obviously, the athleticism, the size, that's definitely what allows him to take that next level up too, where there are not many people that can contest a shot from Brandon Miller. And if you're going to play drop coverage on him, he has no hesitation on knowing when to pull trigger. And he's been very, very efficient over these last few games, no doubt about it. Brandon Miller is a special scorer in this league. And the truth is the truth. When you watch him, it's like watching young Paul George. His game, just the way that he dribbles, the way that he goes and he pulls up, he has that type of potential. I see Paul George, a lot of Paul George, in a Brandon Miller. To me, Brandon Miller was always top 3. But again, I was very vocal about it. I was one of those people that thought Scoot was the pick at number 2. I thought Scoot coming in, I said it, that Wemby versus Scoot highlight tape was so influential on me, because I'm watching the two best, in my opinion, at the time, go head-to-head, and Wemby was labeled the generational talent, the LeBron James of this draft, the best prospect since LeBron James, and Scoot was going right back at him. Even when Wemby would pick up on him, Scoot has the speed, the athleticism to blow by anyone. I feel like that's what's really been great about Scoot over these last few games is he's learning when to pick and choose when to use his speed, where before the game was he was moving way too fast, not allowing the game to come to him. He was trying to take everything. But now he's learning how when he comes off screens, I can be patient, I can read, and, okay, pick my moment now where to drive. Or sometimes I need to know when I have my mismatches and I have a big on me. If I drive, I know they're going to help. I kick out and I pass. And we've seen him really mature in that regard over these last few weeks, and that's been great. We're seeing him be a little bit more efficient. That's been a big knock to his game early on. So that's why I feel like it's preemptive, because right now we're starting to see Scoot really find his stride. And Brandon Miller, of course, has been having the better season overall so far. But that's not me trying to take anything away from what Brandon Miller has been doing as a scorer. He's been phenomenal. That's what you knew you were going to get from him. But I still look at Scoot and what he can offer to you, not only with his scoring abilities, his ability to obviously facilitate. His athleticism is amazing. But I think that it's a matter of him. The way I said that Brandon Miller needs to get better at finishing out the basket is the same way that we need to see Scoot Henderson improve on his three-point shooting. That's the one knock to his game for sure. But in that mid-range, that's where he lives. He's been really doing a great job of adjusting to the speed of the NBA. So, yeah, it wasn't a bad pick by the Charlotte Hornets. No way, no how. Brandon Miller is going to be a great basketball player in this league. But I do still firmly believe that Scoot Henderson is going to be a great player in this league also. And I'm not going to allow half a season to sway me from believing that Scoot Henderson will be better long-term. These two are going to be great. No doubt about it. I still side with Scoot.
Last 10 games, Brandon Miller's been hooping.
He's not going to be a bust compared to Scoot no more. You swayed on that?
Oh, no, I was wrong.
Okay.
I was wrong. That's pre-draft, and I was wrong.
I think, I'm glad you're writing that wrong now.
I'm not upset about it. Brandon Miller's fun to watch.
He is. He's giving you 23, 4.5, and
he's
3.
helping out my boy LaMelo while he's missing some time.
From the field,
LaMelo going to help him?
From 3.
He needs to get back on the court, man. He was helping him early on in the season. Talk to me. I'm sorry. Talk to me.
No, I was just talking about his efficiency. I mean, these last 10 games, unfortunately, the Hornets have lost all 10, but they were losing without him regardless. But he's giving you 23, 4.5 rebounds, nearly 3 assists, 48% from the field, 40% from 3, and 86% from the free throw line. The numbers are silly. It is still a bit harder to compare Scoot and Brandon Miller just because obviously the sample size isn't that large, and just the role too, where I feel like Brandon Miller has some more freedom and flexibility. As of course you have Gordon Hayward there, who I guess plays similar position, but Scoot playing off and with Anthony Simons, I feel like it's a bit tougher than Brandon Miller, who knows LaMelo's number one. He could kind of play off him. Of course, when LaMelo's not there, he gets a ton of looks. Miles Bridges just saw had 40, but without kind of this person that you're building with playing the same position, I feel like it's a bit easier for Brandon Miller to be able to more comfortably get adjusted to this. You know, these last 10 games are the best 10-game stretch he's had throughout this season. Of course, he's dealt with injuries as well. But I think if you're both teams, you have to be happy about your selection. Probably a bit more happy with Brandon Miller, the way he's been playing, just more natural fit for that Hornets team. But Scoot has been getting better. You know, to start off the year, it was ugly, some of the efficiency numbers he was putting up. Like, it was historically bad numbers that Scoot was giving you. He also dealt with his injuries too, but it takes a while for most rookies to find their footing. You know, we get used to Wemby this season, Chet this season, who's technically a rookie, who it feels like day one they hit the ground running, and they're having like historic like MVP or Rookie of the Year type years where Chet on-off numbers defensively is insane. Wemby, but Chet as well, especially defensively. The lift he's brought to that Thunder team, and Wemby being the phenom and also living up to that phenom title, and he's been phenomenal. But Brandon Miller's been great. It's just a shame the Hornets suck right now, so no one's really watching them. That Timberwolves game, that was like the first game I'd watch in probably a couple months from that Hornets game, because out of all the League Pass games, I'm just not watching Hornets games. But he was hitting some clutch shots down the stretch of that game. You see the Paul George-esque game to him where he has that, you know, he could kind of be patient with his dribbles and pull up from mid. He's 6'9", so he's got a good wingspan and a high release point. So I think he's like a 90 or 91st percentile in terms of like mid-range jump shooter frequency wise. He shoots around like 42%. So for, you know, a first time a rookie, that's one of the tougher jump shots, one of the tougher shots in basketball to hit. So what he's been doing, it's really promising for the Hornets.
I'm just glad both of these guys were able to find their footing, because there's been some nasty conversations. First of all, you had, you know, Brandon Miller in the summer. You know, he was playing terrible in the G League. I mean, he was playing terrible in Summer League. You know, It is what it is. You know, not everybody has their greatest moments in Summer League. And he was getting a bad rep. You know, he was getting destroyed. And then, you know, he goes out. He plays fine. You know, start the season, he started off struggling, but he started to play fine. Then Scoot, you know, he got hurt, but Scoot was also playing pretty terrible, and he was getting a bad rap for it. Now both of them are seeming to come into their game slowly. They're starting to process the game a little bit better. You know, Brandon Miller, I think he's obviously been more impressive as of lately. You know, he's kind of fitting more into that number two, that wing on the side. You know, he does need to work on his defense, of course, need to add a little bit more to the bag, to his size. But I think both of these guys, them Scoot, like when he came back from that injury, he had the little goggles on. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he started to play well. And I think with this class, you know, what they've shown us is they need time. Even these other guys like Amon, like Whitmore. Cason Wallace is one of the few outside of the two big ones that kind of started off strong regardless. He's been steady, but Hawkins started to see more run. He started off heating it up. Derek Lively, he's been good. These Keontae George, when he started to get more burn, he started to figure it out a little bit. So I think what this class is teaching us just patience and time. These guys, they started off terrible, but now they're starting to figure it out a little bit. And shout out to these coaches, shout out to these rookies for kind of letting the game come to them and starting to figure it out, figure out the ins and outs of the NBA and how to break down pick and rolls. Like B. Miller's pick and roll offense is sound. He knows what he's doing. So shout out to Brandon Miller. I'm glad he deaded all that stuff in the summer, and I just hope he continues to hoop.
Well, I think one thing is clear is I think the Hornets made the right selection.
Yeah.
I think even at the time, if you had any sort of belief in LaMelo, there was no reason to double dip and take a point guard with LaMelo and Scoot. So I think them taking Brandon Miller was the right decision. And then the Blazers needed a clear need for a franchise guard, even though right now Anthony Simons is kind of taking that mantle, and who knows if they make him expendable down the line. I think with Scoot, point guards take time. Darius Garland had one of the worst rookie seasons for a point guard that we've seen, and he turned out just fine. He's an all-star in the league. And I think Scoot can have a similar trajectory, but the reason why I wasn't as high on him as a prospect is because I don't think becoming a great shooter is as easy as people make it out to be. I think it takes a lot of time and dedication, and maybe Scoot is willing to do that, but it's hard to become a great shooter. And I think his turnovers are pretty high for the amount of assists he gets, and it was like that at G League Ignite. And in the NBA, he's turning the ball a little bit too much for me. So I think those are holes in his game that he can get better at. But I think both teams made the right selection. And I like Brandon Miller, and I feel like LaMelo Ball, I used to love his game, but I feel like over time, he's kind of put an importance on things that shouldn't be that important to him. Because the Hornets, you see, are one of the biggest laughingstocks in the league.
He's been injured. Don't do that to
It's
him.
not about injuries. It's about, taking videos of going shopping for jewelry. And
That was like a team video.
Yeah, but, that just showcases what type of team they are.
Oh, shit.
They're focused on the wrong things.
It's just such a weird thing to call out. To me, I look at this team and just think that they just lack talent. They're trending in the right direction in terms of acquiring. Obviously, Brandon Miller was a great addition to that. Mark Williams last season. But LaMelo, when he's on the court, it's undeniable his talent. It's just a matter of being there, which is why I posed this question early on saying, at what point do the Hornets maximize his potential and his abilities and not allow the injuries to hamper that trade value? That's a legitimate, real thing.
What do you trade him for?
That's the thing.
I don't want the Hornets making more draft.
Well, I feel like
Draft
it's
picks
too
aren't going to
early.
help
I
them.
don't want 'em
But
making
they've hit Mark Williams
Mark
and Brandon
Williams,
Miller
that's a
back to
fact.
back.
Well, I feel like
Williams
it's too
so
early.
fucking mid.
He is. But last year he was really good. This year he's been underwhelming. I agree.
They don't have the most talent, but there's no leadership in Charlotte from top to bottom. And I feel like, in these conversations, a lot of the leadership falls on the best player. It's unfortunate, but it's LaMelo. Like, it just falls on him. That's why I think Brandon Miller could take a step in that role, because I think he's already been growing in that aspect. He's already calling out poor defensive effort in games, and he's yelling at his teammates. So I feel like
To get the fuck back.
he is somebody that can instill that type of mentality and leadership in an organization the same way that I saw Anthony Edwards do it for Minnesota. Because I felt like Cat wasn't the best leader. But then once Edwards got to Minnesota, it was a clear shift in mindset, and the team has adopted his mentality. So I think Miller, it could be a similar story. And that's just something I don't feel like LaMelo has the best of right now.
But let me ask you, you saying that you love his game, his antics off the court have made you not love his game?
It's not antics. I just think that LaMelo, based off just what I've seen post-game interviews and just how he acts on social media, I don't know if like the most important thing to him is making sure that his team is the best it could possibly be. Mm-hmm. Like he's putting an importance on winning basketball games. When I listen to Anthony Edwards post-game interviews or his interviews in general, it's always about winning. And for the better players in the league, it's always about winning. Tyrese Halliburton just called out the Pacers franchise, and he said he wants to win. That's what he wants to do. I've never heard LaMelo come out and say, I want to win. Have you ever heard that? Have you ever heard that? Or no, am I tripping?
Verbatim.
I mean, first two seasons in the league,
I hope so.
He brought a poverty team to at least respectable.